Guardiola's Manchester City, one of the best teams in the world, no doubt about it, but even the best have their flaws. And this season, City has been an absolute mess.
I don't know, it just feels like it's all petering out to some sort of mediocrity by their standards, not by other people's standards, by their standards.
Crazy, right? Just a few months ago, this team was untouchable, streamrolling everyone, stacking trophies like it was nothing. But now, something's off. Right now, City is sitting in 4th place. 4th! And they're already 12 points behind Liverpool. For a team like City, that's almost unthinkable. It's been a rough start, and for the first time ever, Pep is facing some serious challenges with this team. Pep is still a genius, but right now, his greatest strength, his constant tactical tinkering, has become his biggest weakness. But how exactly did this happen? You see, over the past few seasons, teams have changed the way they defend against City. They're packing the middle of the field, closing every gap, and making it so hard for City to play their usual fluid game. But come on, this is Pep Guardiola we're talking about. He wasn't going to let that stop him. So what did he do? He flipped the script. Pep started pushing his fullbacks higher up the pitch to create more space in midfield. The result? City began outnumbering their opponents, and suddenly the game was back in their hands. And this season, Pep brought back the diamond formation he used at the end of the 22-23 season. Genius move, with Rico Lewis or whoever is playing the right back playing higher up, City had a 3-on-2 advantage in midfield. It left the other teams completely confused. Before, when City played a more traditional setup, they had too many defensive players in those key areas. But now, it's all about dominating the midfield. Plus, with players like Doku and Savinho in the mix, things are even more exciting. These guys are electric. They can dribble past defenders like it's nothing and either score or create chances for their teammates. I mean, teams are so worried about them that they're spreading their defense wider just to keep up. But here's the thing, this new approach comes with a downside. You see, Guardiola's teams are all about high pressing, quick passing, and winning the ball back in a flash. It's that intense style that made City so dominant. But here's the thing, playing so high up on the pitch comes with risks, and lately, those risks have been catching up to them. When City's fullbacks push forward, they leave space behind, and opponents are starting to figure this out. Teams are now targeting the wide areas, exploiting those gaps, and it's creating big problems for City's defense. Just look at the game against Brighton. This one really put a spotlight on their struggles. Brighton's second goal, it was a perfect example of what's been going wrong. 3 City defenders just stood there as a Brighton player ran right past them. No one even tried to stop him. It was a breakdown in communication, and Brighton took full advantage. And it wasn't just one moment, Brighton kept finding massive gaps in City's backline. Pep Guardiola was playing a little deeper than the rest of the defenders, which meant Brighton's attackers stayed onside every time. All it took was one good pass and they were through on goal. The same thing happened against Bournemouth. In one play, a City defender almost got to the attacker but just wasn't quick enough to clear the ball. The attacker had all the time in the world to turn, shoot, and score. And that second Bournemouth goal? Even worse! The attacker was left completely unmarked in the box and it was an easy finish. City's defense just isn't tight enough right now. They're not marking players closely, they're giving opponents way too much space. And they're not aggressive enough in the box. These mistakes are costing them goals, and it's been an issue for a while now. If they don't fix it soon, it's going to keep costing them big games. We have all seen it, City's backline has looked shaky all season, especially inside their box. But let's be real, the biggest issue? They're missing that rock-solid defensive midfielder to hold everything together. Now, don't get me wrong, Rodri is incredible. He's an absolute beast. Strong, smart, and always in the right place at the right time. He's been the glue for City's midfield, but here's the thing. He's not exactly a natural defensive midfielder, and with him out of the picture, City is feeling the pain. Then there's John Stones, another massive piece of the puzzle, but he's been injured too. Stones and Rodri together were the ultimate duo at protecting the defense. They closed down space, stopped passes, and gave City's fullbacks the freedom to stay wide. Without them, it's been chaos. Pep used to rely on this clever 3-2 setup where the defenders and midfielders worked as a unit to shut down attacks. It worked like magic. Stones would step into midfield alongside Rodri and boom, they'd dominate. But now, Pep's trying something completely different. He's pushing the fullbacks higher up the pitch to join the attack, leaving just 3 defenders at the back. And you can probably guess what happens next. It's leaving the defensive midfielder completely isolated. Even Rodri, arguably the best midfielder in the world right now, struggled with this setup last season. And now with players like Kovacic and Gundogan stepping into that role, those small cracks in the midfield have turned into huge gaps. This attacking style leaves them wide open to counterattacks, and teams have caught on. Instead of trying to battle City in midfield, they just sit back, wait for a mistake, and pounce. And the strategy is working. One sharp pass and suddenly, City's defense is in trouble. The midfield just isn't doing enough to stop them, and it's leaving huge gaps for other teams to exploit. Even Pep Guardiola himself once said, "In football, it's all about controlling the middle of the field." But this season, that idea just doesn't seem to be applying to the team. Just take their latest loss to PSG in the Champions League. Paris Saint-Germain dominated the middle, outnumbered City completely, and that shifted the entire game in their favor. But before we continue, if you're loving the video so far, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on awesome content like this. Now, let's get back to the video. Luis Enrique had his team perfectly set up. Every time PSG built their attacks, they had more players in the center of the pitch. Marquinhos and Willian Pacho anchored the defense, while Vitinha, João Neves, and Fabian Ruiz took charge in midfield. This gave them total control, and City just couldn't handle it. No matter how hard they tried to press, PSG always seemed to have an extra player, and because of that, their wingers had all the freedom in the world to run wild. You could see Pep on the sideline shouting at his players to push higher, but it just wasn't happening. Foden and Nunes couldn't get close enough to disrupt PSG's flow. The ball zipped between Mendes and Kang and Lee like they were on a training pitch, and just like that, another 1v1 chance for the winger. It was relentless. And then, the cracks really started to show. PSG's extra player, Fabian Ruiz, kept finding space, and City just couldn't figure out how to deal with him. When Foden went in for a tackle on Mendes, Akanji had to step up to cover Ruiz. That left Nunes completely isolated against Barcola. Big mistake. Barcola turned on the Jets and assisted Dembele for their first goal. And the craziest part? Around the 60-minute mark, Manchester City was up 2-0. They were cruising. It looked like they had the game in the bag. But then, total collapse. Final score? 4-2 to PSG, an absolute meltdown. And if anything, it just put a giant spotlight on all the problems City's been struggling with this season. Now, let's talk about the wings. Because the situation there is bad, City brought in Savinho and Doku to bring some magic, some spark to feed Haaland. But let's be real, it hasn't worked. Why? Well, having these dribblers is exciting, sure, but it comes with a big risk. They lose the ball, and with the way City's been playing this season, losing the ball often leads to trouble fast. That's why we're seeing Pep use both of them less and less together, only when they're chasing a goal. Just think about last season, Grealish was the guy on the left. He'd pull defenders in like a magnet, open up space for everyone else, and drop those delicate little chipped passes right into Haaland's path. It worked like clockwork. But this season, Grealish has barely been involved. Instead, they've got Nunes over there, and look, Nunes is solid. He's a box-to-box guy, but let's not pretend he's out there dancing past defenders or carving out clear chances. That's not just his game. And here's the thing, it's catching up to them. Haaland is still scoring because, well, he's Haaland, but the team around him, they're struggling. 2 of their top 4 scorers from last season, gone. Foden's not scoring like he used to, and when it comes to assists, same story. 2 of their top 4 assist makers aren't delivering, and even Bernardo Silva doesn't feel like himself out there. It's not just the players though, it's the mentality. Last season, City was relentless. They had this killer instinct, this swagger that made them feel untouchable. But now, that edge seems to have dulled. Still, if there is one person who can figure it out all, it's Guardiola. And let's be honest, he's already showing signs that he's starting to.
Whichever way those 3 players fit in, whether they're included from the start, I doubt Pep would from the opening whistle against Chelsea. But whenever he decides to include them, you just feel that it's about making City better.
He started the year with a bang. 3 new signings. Husanov, Marmoush, and Victor Reis. And Pep being Pep, he didn't waste time. He threw 2 of them, Husanov and Marmoush, straight into the starting lineup against Chelsea. Bold move, right? Everyone was buzzing, wondering if this was part of Pep's latest tactical shakeup. Husanov's debut? Let's call it a rough start. He made a mistake that handed Chelsea their goal and misplaced a few passes along the way. Not ideal. But Marmoush? Oh, he stole the show. This guy, fresh from Frankfurt, looked like he'd been waiting for this moment his whole life. Playing out wide but drifting inside like an attacking midfielder, he gave Chelsea nightmares all along. And City, they didn't look like the same team we have seen in recent months. Forget those intricate quick passing plays, they went long, launching balls over the top to hit runners like Marmoush, Guardiola and Nunes. It was bold, it was risky, but man was it effective. Marmoush was everywhere, making runs, creating space and keeping Chelsea's defense scrambling to keep up. Then there is Haaland. A few months ago, he looked completely lost during City's rough patch, isolated and frustrated, but this time he was back and he was unstoppable. He even bagged a sensational goal thanks to a long ball from Ederson that caught Chelsea's defense napping. This was classic Pep, calm, calculated, and in complete control. And those tactical tweaks? Pure genius. He rolled out a bold 2-3-5 setup with Guardiola and Nunes channeling vintage fullbacks, surging forward, overlapping and pinning Chelsea deep in their own half. By the final whistle, City was in cruise control, sealing a dominant 3-1 win. Pep's masterstroke paid off this time, but here's the real question. Will this daring approach hold up against tougher opponents? For now, it looks like Guardiola has found the spark City needed to bounce back. But you know Pep, he's always got something up his sleeve. Let's see if this master tactician can keep evolving and take City back to the top.